Hey guys, I'm going to be using squash today. This one veggie produces like crazy and everybody goes, I don't know what to do with canned squash. It's mushy. My family doesn't like it when I open it up. If you open this up and try to cook it like you do stewed squash, it is mushy and it turns into a puree. Just saying. If you're going to be making a squash soup or adding it to your soups, it's a thickener. That's one way you can use it. Today, we're going to be making squash puppies. I'm going to make them a little bit different. Usually, I would make my cornbread, add the squash to it, and fry it like I do hush puppies. It would be kind of like making a hush puppy. Today, we're going to be doing a little bit different. I'm going to open this jar. This jar is from 15, guys. We put it up in June of 15. So, it's over, let's see, June. It's over 3 years old. It's right at 3.5 years old. So I'm going to be opening this jar. I'm going to drain off the juice. I'm not going to mash it, but I'm just going to drain it really, really well. And I'm going to show you what we're going to be doing to make my squash. If you have people that don't really think they like squash, this is a way to hide it in something they do like. If they like cornbread, hey, you're going to love this recipe. Here we have a cup of cornmeal. I've added in about a teaspoon of salt and a tablespoon, maybe not quite a tablespoon, but a teaspoon and a half of baking powder. And I just mix that together because I'm not using self-rising cornmeal. If you have self-rising cornmeal, you don't need salt and baking powder. But if you have cornmeal that you have ground yourself, add the salt and the baking powder, always. Once I get that mixed up, I'm going to be using some of my onions. Okay, guys, I put my onions up in strips like this. And the reason I do that is we love stir fry. And some people like to just chop them up. If you want to go ahead and chop them up ahead of time, that's fine. But I do all mine in strips, and when I want chopped onions, while they're frozen, I just break them up into the pieces I want. If you want it littler than that, then you'll have to do that. But I like mine in kind of good size pieces like that. So now, to this cornmeal, I'm going to add 2 eggs, probably about half a cup of milk. We're going to test the milk because I know the consistency I want. I'm going to add the onions and the squash. First, with the cornmeal, salt, and baking powder, I'm adding 2 eggs. We're going to mix that up because I want to know the consistency. I'm looking for a certain consistency with this mixture. And I know it's hard to tell you guys what I'm looking for. But, okay, once I get it, you can see it's all wet and nasty with the 2 eggs. But that's okay, it's holding together. What we're going to do is add the squash. Because the squash has a little bit of moisture in it, I don't want too much moisture from the milk. So milk is the last thing I add. And you mix it up really good. You're going to have pieces. If you don't like pieces of squash and you really want to hide it from your family, put it in the blender and then add it. They'll never know what's in there because squash has no taste. When you add it to things like this, you don't taste the squash. But if people can see the chunks, then they throw fits. In go the onions. And you can add more or less, whatever onions you want. Not a big deal. If you want garlic, if you wanted spices, you could spice this up. If you wanted cheese added to it, you could add cheese. If you wanted corn added to it. Lots of people like a jalapeno cornbread. You could add some jalapenos, some corn, and some cheese to this, and it would be awesome. Okay, this is the consistency I have right now. So I'm not wanting this too much more wet. I mean, runny, I guess you would say. So this is a half of a cup. I'm only going to pour about a quarter of a cup. Not quite all of this half cup. And we're going to mix that around. So it's about a quarter of a cup. And you'll learn in Wanda's kitchen, recipes don't matter. Okay, now it's a little more soupy, but not just totally watery. That's what I wanted. I have my muffin top pan. This thing comes in awesome because I didn't want cupcakes. I want flat fritter-like substances. So we're going to add approximately looks like about 2 tablespoons to this. And that way they'll be a little bit flat. They won't be big round puffy things when they come out like a cupcake. They'll be more like a biscuit or something. Okay, and I have a little bit left, and if you want to, you could add that to it to make it go up, but I want mine I want them kind of flat. So this is what I'm going to do is put these in the oven, 375 for about 15 minutes, see if they're brown and done. If not, they'll go a few more minutes till they're done. But you're going to have squash, I guess you would call them fritters, baked in the oven. Great way to hide squash in your cornbread. I have this little bitty iron skillet. We're going to add this little bit into it to make a mini pone of cornbread. Don't ever get rid of your extra. Use it. These 6 muffins plus this will go for 3 or 4 days for Danny and I to have something like this as an add-in to our meal. When I cook multiples of things and then I put it in the fridge, and yes, we eat leftovers. Right now my oven has baking potatoes in it. I'm not baking 2 potatoes, I'm baking 4. That way we have potatoes tomorrow, we have cornbread tomorrow, and when I fry hamburgers, they're going to be about 6 or 8 of them so that he has hamburgers every day all week. Leftovers, guys, you better get used to it. Okay guys, we're fixing to try our squash puppy, hush puppy, whatever you want to call them, fritters, cornbread. I used the muffin top pan and they're real thin and real flat. I didn't put but 2 tablespoons in there, and we want to know how Danny likes them. So he's got one on his plate.
We call them corn cakes.
Corn cakes, but they have hidden ingredients in them.
Well,
what you think? What do you taste?
one thing I like about it is a little bit moist on the inside. Because of the squash, I guess.
Yes.
But it tastes really good.
It's got a touch of an onion taste. I can taste the onions.
I can taste the onion.
The squash really doesn't give it a flavor.
No.
It just makes it more moist inside,
Yeah.
but it's crunchy on the outside. That's what he likes. He likes crunchy cornbread. And I got squash in the mix.
Another way to use your canned squash.
Hide it in your stuff. So canned squash in, I don't know if I could call them squash fritters, squash cornbread, whatever you want to call it.
Squash corn cakes.
Squash corn cakes. Maybe that's it.
There you go.
New recipe, guys. Thank you from Crazy Days.